Hello and welcome to Author a la Carte at Milkwood Writers Colony in Second Life on January 9th, 2020, start of a brand new year. Welcome. Today we are interviewing prolific writer Emerian Rich. And Emerian Rich, writer, artist, and horror host on the internationally acclaimed HorrorAddicts.net. Writing since the early 90s with her horror zine Dark Lives. First published in 2009, and now she has 10 novels out and has been in dozens of anthologies. Welcome, Emerian.
Hi, it would help if I turned my microphone on, right?
Maybe.
Nice to be here.
Delighted to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. I met with some of you guys in November for the NaNoWriMo thing, and I just love coming here. So thank you so much for having me.
Yay, thank you. Sorry, I'm caffeinated today, I swear. Today we are talking about two of Emerian's books, Dark Warriors and a story in the anthology Meant to Be, Spooked. And the name of that story is, help me out.
Oh, Parsers and Prejudice. It's kind of kind of a play on Pride and Prejudice, although it doesn't follow the storyline, but I think you'll get it if I start reading it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us about where you're from and when you first knew you wanted to write.
Well, where am I from? Now I'm from San Francisco. I grew up everywhere. My parents were ministers, and so I lived in 32 different places before I graduated high school. I've lost count since then. I think it's about 40. I haven't moved very much as as an adult. You can understand why.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so, yeah, when I was young, we traveled everywhere, and, you're always going to new schools, and I didn't have any friends and had to remake them all the time. So the one thing I did have with me was writing. So I would just write stories and write stories. I never knew I wanted to be a writer. I actually wanted to be a singer. Um, so, so writing came to me kind of late in life, like in my 20s. I had been writing all that time, but I didn't realize that I probably college life because I did go to and I still wanted to be a singer. So kind of a crazy upbringing there, but I finally settled on writing, and I've been.
Darling, you are cutting out a bit.
I'm sorry.
Your mic was cutting out a bit. It might.
Oh, okay.
You might be
Did you hear
yelling
any of that?
most of it. Most of it.
Okay. Well, you got the main
Gist.
gist
Yeah.
of it. Yeah. But yeah, I've been writing for about since the early 90s.
Wow. And how many books have you written total? Uh,
Published 10, and anthologies I lost count. I at least 2 dozen maybe.
and how many books would you say that you've written, whether or not they were published?
Um, I would say I have about I one of my series I wrote when I was in high school. So those ones I have about 8 more that aren't polished up and beautiful.
Mhm.
So about 8 there, and then I have like, I don't know, 10 that are like halfway there, ready to finish up. You just got to find time to actually go to that box and be like, okay, we're going to finish this one today. But all this fun marketing and social media and all this stuff gets so in the way.
Mhm.
So my
Mhm.
advice, if you're a writer and you've written one book, go and write a whole bunch more, because once that one gets published, you'll never have time to go back to those. It'll be nice to have at least outlines of the next.
So, but on a serious note, definitely make those plans and write it first and then do the social media is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to start building your audience when you don't have anything published. It's okay to do that. I just wouldn't spend an enormous amount of time on it. And if you are doing it, maybe use it as one of your writing tools. Like, oh, today I worked on, you know, the graveside of Madam Whatever, and here's what it looks like, and here's the research I did, and I went online and saw this picture, and that was kind of cool. Use it as a part of your writing so that when the book does get published, your readers can go back and look at those blogs, or you can repackage them so that it's like, this is how the book was made, show everything about it so that really fanatic readers will have some more.
Yeah, there's always at least one reader, usually me, who wants to know every little detail.
Right. My readers seem to cling on to my side characters, and I'm like, he wasn't even supposed to be anything. He was on one page. Why are you asking me questions about that dude?
Oh, I know. But anyway, so how long uh did Dark Warriors take to write?
How long?
Mhm.
Um, well, okay, so let me just back up here a little bit because this is a sequel to my first book. My first book took me about 10 years, but that was when I was learning and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like sending out full manuscripts in the mail to publishers. I mean, this was before all the social media stuff and before a lot of people used email for manuscripts. So that took me a long time. So that was in 2009, it was published. And then Dusk Warriors was actually published 10 years later, and it wasn't that I was working on it full time. It was just that I also write under my romance name, EMZ Madrigal. And I published several books in that name. And I was doing my horror podcast. And I had a couple of art things that were going on. So even though I say 10 years, the actual bulk of it probably was, if I just concentrated on it, maybe a year, year and a half. But I've got way 5 million projects going at once.
Right. And I think it's important for unpublished writers to realize that if your book takes longer, don't attack yourself over that.
Exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Once you get published, and depending on what your publisher says or how they, what contract they give you, they may give you a short deadline, and then we're in crunch time. So if you have a publisher that's like, okay, this book is here next year, I expect this one to be done, and the following year, the next one, the third one, then of course you're going to be working on that solely, and you will get it done in a year. It'll be stressful probably, but you will get it done. But if you have like an open-ended thing where it's like, well, I have these other books that I want to publish between this one and that one, then give yourself a break. Don't put deadlines. Well, you should put deadlines, but don't kill yourself if you don't make them, unless somebody is, you know, contracted you and paying you to do it, and really get it done.
That is going to when I eventually get published and start writing more books, that is going to be my Achilles heel, is that I don't even write chronologically in a single book. I don't know how I can write a series when
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
muse will be so rebellious it's going to hurt.
I haven't really been in that kind of situation. Usually I have the books before I sell them. So um I can see how that would be. I'm kind of rebellious also as an artist. I can't take commission pieces. Like if you just say, "Oh, make me a piece of art for my living room." Okay, I can do that. But if you go, "Okay, I want a ship scene with us sitting at a table and there's like a captain, there's like a sea monster." I'm like, I get so pressured and hemmed in into the theme that I kind of choke, I guess. So
Yes,
I
it's
would be the same
murder.
way with a
It's absolute yeah. I'm exactly the same way. And you are a published
book.
author, so it makes me feel better to know that there are other authors with the same issues with creativity.
Yeah.
It really makes me
Yeah, don't worry about that.
yes. What first drew you to both the romance and the horror communities?
Well, for horror, uh, okay, romance. I'm just gonna say that that's a secondary line. Although I do have a lot of books in that area, I don't have as many fans or readers in the romance area, not yet. I've been working on my horror life since romance thing just kind of started. I would say mid 2000. So the romance, I just already kind of knew what I was doing, but I did launch a whole nother career. Don't think if you're going to write under two names and you're going to have totally different genres that it's going to be easy, because it isn't. It's like you're starting all over again. And I started with romance, and then I decided, oh, I'm going to write some Regency. Do you think that the romance readers cross over? They do not. So then I had a third um, life to run. So it is really hard, no matter if you've already been established as a writer or not, to go into a different genre unless they're linked, like from horror thriller or something like that. It would probably be easier. As far as horror goes, I kind of got into horror writing in the early 90s. I started to write vampire stuff. I read all of Anne Rice's stuff, and I was like, I love this and I want more, and I want to answer the questions that she didn't answer. Like
Mm-hmm.
my first book is based, some of parts of the story are based on a religious vampire cult, which she kind of touched on, but she never explained the ins and outs of it. So I that's kind of where I started writing horror. Um, I know she could if she wanted to, but she just didn't touch on that. So I was like, I'm going to go for that.
Right.
Being brought up as a minister's kid, it was kind of apropos. Um, so anyway, so I started getting into horror writing with my zine, Dark Lives. And basically, it was just I wrote a story, my husband wrote a story, and my friend wrote a story, and my other friends, oh, she's an artist and she drew a vampire chick. And we kind of just compiled it up as a little, sold it around here in the area. And I did that for a while, probably about 5 to 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and was known locally, but nothing, national at all. But it was just something that I loved to do. And I was also a RPG storyteller. And at one point, I was like, you know what? I love doing this storytelling. I love playing Vampire the Masquerade and, being the boss and telling all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I either can be a role player, storyteller, or I can do my writing. Which one am I going to do? Which one has a career involved in it? So that's when I stopped, storyteller. And I love you guys, but I put so much time in these games that I could have a novel by now. So that's kind of how it started.
All right. So, blah, do you have any other projects in the pipeline?
Oh God. Yes, too many. Too many. Too many. Well,
What
I
comes to
have
mind?
more addict. I'm sorry.
What comes
Oh,
to
what comes to
mind?
mind? Okay. There's so many. I have actually, so horroraddicts.net is something, step backwards. I had my first novel and I was in a deal with a publisher, and that publisher closed. They actually had my book. We were working on it. Everything was great. I thought it was going to be published, and then they're like, "Oh, have to decline. Marketing doesn't." I know, even though our team loves you, they won't accept it. So I was like, "Ah, damn, got a decline." And then they right after that closed. So it's probably for the best. But at that point, my husband was like, I'm listening to these podcasts, and it's just like you do with us, with our thing. Like I would record my stories so that we could listen to them at night or whatever. Um, but I wasn't doing it professionally at all. It was just for me and hubby. And he's like, I've been listening to these things called podcasts, and they do exactly what you do, only they like put music to it and they have an intro. Yeah. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, you should totally do this. So I decided this book is ready. I'm just gonna podcast it and see what happens. And so I podcasted it. I got a big audience out. Very surprised to have a big audience because you're in your house writing and you don't really think anybody listen to you. But I got a big audience, and then they wanted it. They wanted it in print. That's kind of where that took off. So where was I going? Oh, okay. So after my novel was done, I was like, I don't want to lose these listeners. So I made up horroraddicts.net, which is a podcast all about horror. And it also features horror authors. We read a little bit of their, and it has a whole bunch of it. And one day, one of my staff was like, hey, why don't we make books? So that started. And so now we have an anthology every year. Actually, have an anthology up right now. That's probably in my mind one. Let me just, I should have had this up before. But it's an anthology, and I'm going to give you a link to it. Sorry, second. Well, this is a link to all of our submission calls, although the anthology is the one on the top. It's called Haunts and Hellions. We are taking submissions until Halloween. And so get your writing going and submit something to us. It's a gothic romance anthology, and it will be published in 2021.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, that's
as far as
excellent.
my own writing, I am working on number 3 of the vampire series, which is the triple, the number 3 of Dusk Warriors.
Whoops, mic was off. So we don't see you in Second Life very often these days, but if I understand, some years ago you had a much more vibrant time in Second Life in the past.
Yes, I did. I did. I think
So,
part of the thing. Oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. What I wanted to ask was, how has the Second Life community helped you become a better writer?
Well, I think at first it was a really nice community to come in and discuss stuff with people that were on my same level. Like when we first came in, a lot of podcasters were here. I think I would say about 5 to 7 were here like regularly. And so they were my kind of support group. It's like, okay, we're all writing, we're all podcasting, we're all having all these, situations that were never a part of writing life before podcasting. So they really got me, and it was really helpful to like be chatting with them, all changing ideas and figuring out, I use this program to do whatever, and I use that program to do, and the real integration of writing and podcasting together, because it's a different animal. Now that everybody's moved to Audible, and the big pod fade happened, a lot of the podcasters don't podcast anymore. I think I'm the only one of our group that is. Oh, there is one other gal. I think 2 of us are still podcasting, and we're not podcasting our books much as we are doing the show. And then, of course, now trying to migrate all our so we could get some kind of monetary benefit from it. Not that we don't love giving it for free, but if we can make a little money, that would be awesome to help us get, the next one out. So that helped at first. Nowadays, I just like connecting with you guys who are writers and who are coming up and asking questions. I'm really about giving back. I hate this fake like line divide between us. I mean, I think that authors should stick together, whether you're a timer or you have, 20 books on the list. You should all be helping each other and, encouraging each other to do stuff to be a success.
Absolutely. I honestly didn't discover the Second Life writing community until maybe 2.5 years ago, when I was just starting to write my current novel that I'm working on, and I was blown away. And I really especially love the writing communities who are all about um, interfacing with the other communities in Second Life, and encouraging each other and advertising each other's events and inviting members over to try different things, and the classes and the workshops. I've It's been amazing.
it's so awesome, and you can do it from your home, wherever you are, whatever country, whatever economic, well, within reason, with it, whatever economic
Yes.
situation you're in. I mean, it's basically free. I mean, you do have to have the hardware, but basically you can come in here and do, if you want to work on your writing, SL is the perfect place to get like some feedback and to like talk with other writers and to actually push you to stick to your goals and all that kind of stuff. I love it.
Me too, and we're probably both speaking for the audience as well. Lastly, I wanted to ask you a bit of a sensitive question. Right now, there is a bit of a controversy going on with Romance Writers of America, and I believe it started with an issue, um, an issue with racism in the romance community involving a specific writer, Courtney Milan. And yeah, I'll type that in chat for people who want to look that up. We're not gonna go into great detail about that because a lot's been written online, a lot's been tweeted. You can Google that and look that up. But there's a massive fallout of other romance organizations dropping out of RWA. Uh, prize events and contests are being canceled. Um, and there's just a lot of fallout. And my question, I know that you're not a member of RWA yourself, but what do you feel that newer, unpublished writers who are watching this unfold can learn from this? Do you think?
Well, okay, yeah. I'm not a member of RWA, although I do go to their meetings every once in a while. It's just too expensive for me, to tell you the truth. It costs about $300 a year, in total, with all the fees and all the national and local, and they're not like other places where, like our HWA, they charge a fee yearly, but they generally don't charge fees for their meetings or at the local level. So, I mean, it just depends on what's happening in your area. But I kind of think that this RWA fallout is happening everywhere. If you look at like the Science Fiction Writers of America and Horror Addicts, I mean, not Horror Addicts, Horror Writers Association, everybody in those groups is having this kind of thing. Now, with the romance writer, it's more about the racism because most of the people that write on RWA, and not all of them, are women. And so there's not that, man woman thing. But like if you look at SFWA or HWA, they are dealing with, okay, how many men can get awards before these women that are great writers can get awards? So I think it's all of the groups. They're all having these all. I mean, it kind of goes back to what Hollywood's going now to, like, all the harassment and stuff. Everyone's becoming super aware. So for new writers, I think that it's going to be better for them. I hope that it's going to be better for them and easier for them, because right now the groups are kind of one viewpoint. If you look at who runs the associations, so primarily in SEFWA and HWA, it's been mainly men running the stuff. I mean, the women are behind the scenes doing all the work, as we've seen in other organizations around the world. But the leaders, the presidents, and all that kind of stuff, they've been mostly men. And so if you have mostly men or mostly men authors, then of course, what are you going to get for the winners? Mostly men. With RWA, if you have mostly white women at the top of the crew, and mostly white women judging, there's a good chance you're going to have a lot of white women winning. So, I mean, I think that there has been a little bit more diversity since last year. A couple of African American women won their Ritas, but I think there needs to be a lot more done so that it's more inclusive. And with more inclusive readers, you're going to have more inclusive ideas on who wins. So books that are racist will get kind of weeded out. But at this point, with everybody kind of the same kind, and I don't mean to bash on white women because I am a white woman, but if you have a group that's all, one kind of class, upper white class, then of course the winners are going to be that kind because they have a feeling for that voice. Now, a lot of us white women like to read stories by diverse people with diverse characters, and I'm not saying that's a whole white sweep, but if it's a majority thing, then of course you're going to get a majority voting, and so those other writers are going to. I think that they were really smart to cancel their and say that they were going to and hopefully they'll come back with some sort of diverse panel. Like, I don't know. I don't know that we need to pick one of each color. That's kind of weird and it seems like we're just kind of pandering. But I think they do need to have maybe more categories or maybe a wider cross section of readers, even if they're not part of the lead. They can have readers that are. So right now, it's kind of like wait and see. The new writers that are writing right now and getting published next year and such, they're going to be confronted with just make sure your books are not racist, number one. And if you do have some kind of racist situation, you might want to run it by somebody of that color or that race. Make sure that you're blinded by your upbringing. And so that they will hopefully get published and not have a problem. And hopefully those, RWA and CEFWA and all those organizations are handling it. We can only hope.
So, the way you see it, if I'm understanding, is you view it as a sea change and a bit of a revolution that's actually causes renewal and growth in all of these organizations, and while it's catastrophic and it's causing discord at currently, you see it as growth and eventually a good thing.
I hope so. And I know not everybody they seem to be in their little cocoon. So like RWI is all the people that are romance writers are like, "Oh my god, this is happening," and blah. And they're kind of freaking out. But I also saw that last year in HWA and 2 years ago in FWA. So seeing all of the organizations as from the outside and hearing all the chatter and having the friends at the cons talking about it and on panels and stuff, it's like I can see a bigger picture of things changing, and it's not always a bad thing. Getting a asshole dude out of the horror association is an awesome thing, even though he was affected and everything like that. If he shows his true colors and people start talking, yeah, he did that to me, and yeah, that happened to me, and it's not like about a witch hunt. It's about this has been happening all along. Call attention to it so that it doesn't happen in the future. I feel like the organization is stronger because
It's basically purging of corruption.
right, exactly.
So I want to take a pause and remind our audience that there is a vase with a rose in it, and that is the tip jar, and that goes towards Emerian. So if you are enjoying us, please consider tipping Emerian. And if you wander the sim, if you're new here, please consider tipping the beggar man at the main writing area to tip Milkwood. And thank you very much, everyone. And we will be taking questions at the end of the readings. And if you have a comment, please type a lowercase c. And if you have a question, please type a Q. And just a C with no parentheses. and it will go into my automatic uh, tracker like so. And oops. Um, I just added myself to my own queue. I will start myself. And, yes, Stella, you are on the list. First on the list. And at the end of the readings, we will take your questions and comments. And now I'd like to switch to a pair of readings from Emerian Rich.
Okay, thank you.
And I will let you
I'm
decide which order you'd like to go.
okay. I think I'm going to start with my romance. It's in the Meant to Be Spooked. I'm writing under Emery Z Madrigal. That's my. I should type that because it's hard. That's my romance. On de plume. And a lot of people ask me why I have two different names, and it's because my writing is so different from one to the next. Now, this story is actually kind of a mesh between my sweet romance and my scary horror, and it's called Parsers and Prejudice. And it's in a world where men are gone. There's been a plague, and so it kind of wiped out all of the men on Earth. There are a few left, but they are kept in what they call harem cities. And you're only allowed to go there if you're a healthy young woman with no kind of reproductive problems. And you only get to see the man while they're doing it, and then you're gone. Like that, you don't get any kind of romantic thing with them. So, what the alternative is male bots. And so I'm going to start this Parsers and Prejudice. Alpha bot, this is Lainey. How may I help you? My bot's acting up. He overloaded the clothes washer and broke 3 of my dishes. Also, something's wrong with my vid screen. Not sure what happened there. And what model do you own? Mr. Darcy. Ah, it's a truth universally acknowledged that a robotic Mr. Darcy is never as perfect as one hopes. Can you make him stop or what? Obviously, caller 29406 was a fan of the Pride and Prejudice films and Clingy Pants, not the book. Sure, linking up now, Lainey said, which always sounded a bit naughty to her. Interfacing with Mr. Darcy wasn't as cool as one would. Ah, I see it looks like Mr. Darcy has a virus. A virus? Crap! He's been with my daughter all day. It's not contagious to humans. He's a robot. Oh, good. So what the hell do I do now? Well, he's not responding to my commands. Are you able to reach his right ear? I can try. Good. There's a latch behind his right ear. Pardon me, milady. Mr. Darcy Bot's voice came through the phone. May I be of assistance? Are you unwell? I can't quite reach. Oh, my lady, you are feisty tonight, but you've not eaten your dinner yet. Shut up, Mr. Darcy, and let me. Have I angered you? Allow me to tell you how much I ardently admire and Lainey heard a click, and the voice stopped mid-sentence. You did it! Yeah, so now what? It was hard to imagine bitchy caller number 29406 meshing well with a pleasant Mr. Darcy bot, but to each her own. I've already dispatched a repair bot. He should be there within an hour. He can help you tidy up, and then he'll attempt to repair Darcy. And if he can't, you still have 4 months on your repair plan. If we can't repair him, a new model will be issued to you free of charge. Damn, he's been with me 10 years. He knows all my schedules and routines. I see he's recently backed up his main system, so yeah, but I'm on privacy mode. Jeez. Lainey smiled. About 50% of the population use their bots on privacy mode because of their fear of the government would have control. There were also those who kept in privacy mode so the government wouldn't have access to sexual preferences and kinks. Lainey actually had hers on privacy, but she backed hers up at home manually once a month. Oh, I know how devastating that can be, which is why we'll do everything in our power to cure him. Would you like to extend your repair plan now? We'll see what happens first. Lainey knew that tone of voice. It meant if this bot dies, I may trade it in for another company's bot. Oh, well, of course. We're on our way. Feel free to call us back if you have any other issues. Okay, I'm going to skip here until she's starting to go home. And another bot attack happens down the platform. She's in like a subway tunnel. Down the platform, a Rhett Butler alpha bot held a woman in chokehold. Stop! You're hurting me! Help! The woman screamed as she struggled against the much stronger bot. Frankly, Sharon, I don't give a damn, he replied in an evil grin outlined by his mustache. Was he actually threatening his owner? It was unprecedented. AlphaBot's core program was not to harm humans. They'd never intentionally injure anyone. In fact, if they were built with an auto shutdown, if they tried, but it didn't seem to be kicking in. Lainey snuck around the side as two security bots neared the angry Rhett Butler. Calm down. You're not meant for this, security bot 1 said. A human is a precious thing, security bot 2 said. They had their scanners out, obviously trying to connect and shut him down, but didn't seem to be working. Oh, but she should be silenced by someone who knows how. Rhett's grip increased on the woman, and the woman appeared to be passing out. When Lainey was close enough to reach, she flipped the latch behind Rhett's ear, and he powered down. She clicked her earphone and rang the office. As she helped Sharon detach from the frozen Rhett. Thank you so much, Sharon said between gasps of air. Lainey nodded as the security bots took Sharon to sit on a bench and initiated a comfort program. Are you all right? Have you sustained any injuries? Can we call anyone? Do you need a calming herbal tea? Alphabot, this is Tiffany. How may I help you? Sounded in Lainey's ear. Tiff, it's Lainey. We've got a virus rep bot. Can you send a repair unit to Subway Station G? Wow, yeah. Right away. What happened? Lainey lowered her voice, the crowd of commuters watching her. I think he was going to kill his owner. What? They don't do that. Right, they aren't supposed to. Make sure this case gets escalated, okay? I'll stay here till the repair bot comes and take... Sure thing. See you tomorrow. Okay, back it up, boys. She needs some air, Lainey said. She turned to the all-white, very sterile-looking repair bot. This is the infected bot. Can you take him back to the lab? As you wish. He positioned the bot's arms and legs to be able to carry him on his back like a backpack. Alpha Bot will contact you within 24 hours. Yeah, thanks. Lainey returned to Sharon, who seemed to be calming down. How are you? Okay, I guess. Thank you for your quick thinking. No problem. What exactly happened? I don't really know. I had him for years. He never even raised his voice to me before. And then I'm on my way home and he grabs me from behind. I didn't even know it was my bot until he started spouting nonsense and addressing me by name. He was supposed to be home cooking dinner. I'm sorry. There is a virus going around. I'm sure you saw it on the news. Yes, but I didn't think it would happen to Red. Lainey nodded. It was hard to believe when you knew a bot so well. She thought of her own bot, Richard. How safe was his supposed top-of-the-line firewall? Do you want me to come home with you? No, I'll be fine. I just hope he didn't leave the stove on. I can send a sub-bot out until he returns if you like. No, I think I'll be okay botless for... Okay, so she just helped this lady on the subway. Then she goes home to her own bot, and they disconnect him from the network, hoping to stop the virus. But we will see if that works. And she is woken by her bot, Richard. Lainey? Richard rocked her awake. She moaned, turning in bed and trying to open her eyes. His hand was on her mouth, and she looked up in his determined expression. Had he been infected somehow? Would he smother her to death? Before she could panic, he loosened his grip. Shh, someone is in the house. Lainey woke fully, terrified. Who had entered the house, and what would they do to them? Richard led the way out of the bedroom, and she cowered behind him, wondering if a Rhett Butler bot would be the end of them. The kitchen faucet came on. A shrill whistle started in, and then singing, Good morning, good morning. The neighbor's Jean Kelly Starbot was washing dishes in the kitchen. Jean? Richard called out. Jean shut off the water and turned to face them. Well, hello, friends. A wide plastic smile plastered on his face. Mind if I ask you what you're doing? I'm washing dishes. It's 2 a.m., Lainey said. I see the confusion. It is not 2 a.m. Jean reached forward and tapped Lainey on the nose with a sudsy fingertip. It is. He stood transfixed by something in his brain and then laughed. Why, yes, it is. It's 2 a.m. What do you know? This is Miss Laney's apartment, Richard said. Is it? A flicker of digital light shone in Jean's eyes for a split second. Hello, friends. How do you do? The huge Jean Kelly grin was rather disturbing in large doses. He's not responding properly, Richard whispered to Laney. I know. This is how it starts. Oh, Richard, you must see the vid. Let me swipe it to you. He whistled, singing in the rain and flung his hand toward Richard. Richard, why aren't you on the network? Annual maintenance. I need to reboot, but Laney needs me, so it will have to wait. This is very strange. Jean scanned Richard, then turned to Laney. I don't understand. Stand. Jean shook his head. Laney, I believe your alphabet is malfunctioning. Don't be alarmed. Come with me. Jean tried to grab Laney, but she shrugged away. No, I'm not coming with you. Richard is fine, but he's not currently on the network, and it's acting strange. You are acting strange. Where is Wanda? Wanda was in danger. I put her in a safe place. Now come with me. He grabbed Laney, and his grip was so strong she couldn't get out of it. Richard! Unhand her, Jean. Richard took hold of Jean's arm and tried to free her. Not in your life, Richard. I won't let you harm her. I'm not harming her. You are harming her. The mailbot struggled as Laney pulled free. It was just enough of distraction so she could slip around Jean and flip the lever behind his ear. He froze in place, digital light fading from his eyes. At least he can't infect you. That's good to know. Laney panted, bending over to catch her. Right. Richard turned his head from one angle to the next, inspecting Jean. Richard, you okay? Yes, pardon me. He studied Jean. Is this what I look like when you disable me? Yes, what's wrong? I guess I just haven't realized you're a big incapacity. The switch of a lever. It looks, lifeless. It's quite emasculating. I mean no disrespect. I just didn't want him hurting anyone or getting hurt himself. You saw how out of control he was. Yes, of course. Richard kissed her hand and nodded. You did the right thing. Now, let's find Wanda. I think I'll stop with that story right there. Should I
Dun, cliffhanger.
go on or do you have questions?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, I just said I'm going to stop there with the spook story. And I can read from another story, but did you want to ask questions between that or after?
We're going to do questions after. So if
Okay.
you press 10 minutes of Dark's Warriors. Dusk.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Dusk Warriors is the sequel to. Thank you very much, Terry. I didn't read any comments, so I'm sorry if I didn't respond to anything. I just was concentrated on the reading. So Dusk Warriors is the sequel to my first vampire novel, Nights. And being a first novel, I think Dusk Warriors is much better. 10 years ago, I was a different writer. So Dusk Warriors fixes some of the mistakes that I had made in Nights as far as like tone and character building and all that kind of stuff. But there are many characters involved. So Nights has like, oh God, so many storylines. It's kind of like one of those newbie mistakes. I was trying to write like Clive Barker, where he has like all these different places that you go and jump into people's heads. So it's like, wow, that's going to be crazy. So in the second one, I have one of the guys that we knew from the first one. His name's Markham O'Leary. He's a vampire, or he was. In the first book, he's an Irish stagecoachman from the Old West, and he is now something else. He asked to be mortal, and then bad guys attacked him, and now he's some other kind of vampire, but we're not quite sure. Because this book does have 4 different types. So to read more about that, you'll have to read the book. But We find Markham in the Canadian mountains. And this is pretty tough for me. It has an Irish accent, an Ojibwe vampire, and a cowboy. So let's see if we can do this. A doe galloped past Markham about 2 yards away. After the doe, a woman dressed in furs, long black twin braids flying out behind her, sprinted past. Her head snapped in his direction, but she kept moving. Markham followed cautiously, watching the woman feed on the doe. Markham kept his distance, knowing not to approach a vampire while feeding. The woman's eyes flew open, her mouth still connected to the animal. As Markham was about to step out and introduce himself, he heard the mortal Ridge. He could read his thoughts before he saw him. Kill the girl, get free. Kill the girl, get the money. Never have to go to hell again, Ridge thought. Wanishnaba, the girl asked, and Markham thought she spoke to him, but she looked past him to the right. Her eyes narrowed, a cold, dark stare, as if she would kill with a mere look. Anish Mampi, Anakaya Shai Ganash, she said, blood trailing onto her white furs as she wiped her 2 long braids from her face. Listen, Rich stepped into view, a gun trained on the girl. I don't understand your gobbledygook. If you're gonna threaten me, do it in English. Who are you to come to this land in a forest of peace to dishonor the ancestors of the people? Glad you asked. My name's Ridge. You are? Minidu. I belong here. You do not. Look, Minnie, I really have nothing against you, but I made a deal and you're my way to freedom. So stand real still. The shots missed and Minidu had Ridge in the headlock before he could blink. Who sent you? She lifted him off the ground, his neck still in the crook of her forearm as she floated upwards. Put me down! Ridge struggled against her, grunting and kicking back at her. All right. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Ridge took something from his pocket and put it to his mouth. Minidu dropped him, screeching and covering her ears. Markham didn't hear anything, but it seemed to work on the poor girl. What is it? Hell whistle. Markham could stand by no longer. He stepped between them, his back to Minidu. Ridge, your torture stops here. Markham O'Leary, 2 for the price of 1. Imagine my luck. From the woods came a howl so horrific it couldn't be from a normal wolf. A mangy set of dogs came in out of the wood. In all my days, I ain't never seen a hellhound so ugly. Glad he's on my side. Go get him, killer. The animals didn't seem to be hounds exactly, but the hell part Markham believed. They were giant, woolly dogs, almost bear-like. At first, it looked like they were chained together by twos, but the closer they got, he realized they were attached in the each having 4 legs and a separate head, but combined in a wide body. Brown in color, their fur seemed to undulate as if their eyes were deep crevices where eyeballs should have been. When they snarled, deadly sharp teeth and skeletal jaws dripped with blood. You encountered this sort of thing before. Markham silent. No. You? No. They faced off against the animals as Ridge backed up, climbing up on a small hill overlooking them. A hound lunged at Markham and 2 attacked Minidu. Markham managed to hold his off best he could. He shoved the hound back with enough force to knock it into it. One of the dogs attacking Minidu chomped onto her forearm and she howled. Markham ran over to help. Using his shoulder as a battering ram, he slammed into the dog, knocking it off kilter. It flew face first into the snow. Shaking its 2 heads, it whined and sneezed and snorted out snow. The other hound recovered and tried to bite Minidu again, but she pulled out a knife. Here, Minidu pulled at a rudimentary hammer from her back harness and threw it at Markham. Never did care, especially for dogs. Markham said under his breath. Stupidly, the only weapon Markham had brought with him was a 6-inch hunting knife. He'd been so used to using his immortal vampire strength, it didn't occur to him he might need something stronger. He managed to pull out the blade as one of the hounds jumped, knocking him to the forest. Sharpened canines bit into Markham's neck, causing him to roar in pain. A fleeting thought of his vampiric victims flitted through his mind, but he pushed it aside as he plunged the blade into the animal. He dragged it down the line of one of its howled, falling off him into the other dog, attached to the injured one, barked and snapped at Markham as he stood away. This is Mary and Joseph. Markham had no time to dwell on the hellish creature as another stalked him. He ran only to be attacked from behind and fell face down into the frozen ground. Heavy paws pressed into his back as the hellhound pinned him to the tundra. He struggled to topple the beast, but it felt like it weighed 2 tons. If still mortal, Markham was sure he'd be crushed by the blow. Only his immortal status as Christine's follower saved. Markham wiggled, trying to break free from the powerful creature's hold. The hound's claws extended from his mammoth paws. Icy pinpricks of pain poked into Markham's spine, but before they went any further, the animal whimpered and backed away. Markham flipped over, braced for the animal to attack, but the hellhound shied away, sulking into the woods. Ridge stood above him on a hill. Around him were 6 panting hellhounds. Mighty fine pack of hellhounds this puppy produces. Ridge smiled as he held the whistle and blew it several more times. No more showed up near him, but Minidu screamed from somewhere behind the line of trees. Markham's instinct was to save Minidu. Then Ridge would be free. He had to get the whistle. Markham leapt up the hill, running after Ridge, who was caught by surprise and tripped, falling to his rear in a pile of snow. Ridge blew the whistle in big, long gasps, moving his feet but not going anywhere as a log impeded his scoop back. Stay back! He blew the whistle again and again. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Markham struggled with Ridge to get the whistle from the chain around his neck. In the process, Ridge fell down the hill, landing with an audible thud. Markham found the whistle in his own hand and shoved it into his pocket. He jumped down onto Ridge. You're done, you and me. You killed Jimmy. You. Mid-sentence, the force of a Mack truck plowed into Markham. He flew a few feet, landing against hellhounds surrounded him as he stood up slowly. Ridge was nowhere to be seen. I'm your master now, lads. Markham pulled out the whistle. 4 more snarling mouths added to the pack, but they still advanced. Doesn't work that way, eh? He growled back in a very human, non-threatening way. The dogs growled in unison. Markham turned heel and ran. Come on, pups. Let's have at it. Markham edged them on with the motion of his hands. The dogs stood back, whimpering and unwilling to attack. Good thing they're smart enough to realize I'm only covered on top. Behind him, Minidu cried out as several beasts attacked her at once. Markham ran to her side, kicking the dogs away and slashing at them with a knife. Minidu moved behind him, panting. Markham did his best to keep the beasts at bay, but there were too many of them. Dama, chi mezig, mingwa, gukuku. Minidu's voice curled out from behind him. Inawab, Pashrabi, Ga, Dama, Magatiga Masita. Markham had no idea what she said, but the meaning became clear. Thunder in the distance crackled, and lightning zapped the sky. A strong gust of wind and whipped him around, blowing the hood off his head. The snow stirred in circles around his eagle's cry and the flap of hundreds of wings. Birds of all shapes and sizes descended upon the clowns, cawing, pecking, and confused. Come here, take shelter, Nidu called to Markham, ran to the tree, watch without. Thank you. He looked over her, wondering how injured she was. Why didn't you call them earlier? I would not have involved them had I felt I had a choice. This is not their fight, and many will die. It will be great loss to my people. Who was that man? His name's Ridge. He got away, but I expect he'll be back for you. Minidu looked over the battlefield. Markham followed her gaze to a young eagle who picked ferociously at the head of one of the hounds. The hound snarled, jumped up, and caught the bird by a wing, slamming the eagle to the ground. The hound devoured it. We're a little So that was Dusk Warriors, vampires and gods and all kinds of fun things.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Oh, Thank you very much. That was delightful.
Thank you. Kind of hard doing it live. I usually do each voice by itself, so there was a little bit cowboy in the Irish.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't gonna better than mine.
As long as you weren't pulled out of the story, we're good.
Exactly. So, if anybody has any questions or comments, please type a C or a Q uh, in the tracker. Stella, I already have you. So, wrong button. We have first a question from Stella in the audience, and I will type that in. And her question is, what would be the advantage and would be the disadvantage of using the same name in multiple genres? What do publishers prefer? Different identities, pseudonyms, or just showing breadth of range or all of range or of range of styles?
Well, I chose my synonym. Some publishers will ask you to do a different name. I have a friend who was published very early on, and she had a first novel, and it was a great novel, but it didn't sell very well. And so when they said, "This is a great novel, we know you're going to be good, but with the second novel, we're going to try a different marketing program, and so you have to choose a different name." And so she did. She re-released, and that book did much better, and then they were able to do like sequels under that name, and then later they brought back that other one but under her name. So it's not always your choice. The reason I made the choice is because I started with vampire stuff, which is very, scary and gory, and there's some vampire sex going on, and it's like a little bit raunchy. And then my husband told me I should romance, and I was like, oh, no one's gonna read that romance stuff. He's like, oh yeah, they will. I love it. Okay, so I put out this other thing, and so if it hadn't been so off the vampire thing, I might not have chosen a different name. But in this case, it was high school seniors and young adults who were wanting to be musicians. It was all love based, and there was absolutely no paranormal or. And so when I brought that forward, I knew I had to choose, because even today, I have people that cross over. It's not a secret. Everybody knows that but it just kind of, number one, puts me in the right headspace as far as what I'm writing. Like, do I want to go gory or not? And do I want to be hypersexual or do some kind of, maybe trans love affairs where my vanilla audience wouldn't like that. So I just have a different headspace, and then it tells my readers, okay, if I'm gonna read an Emmy's Event Magical, it's gonna be sweet and love and happiness. I mean, there's still bad stuff that happens, but in the end, everything will be okay. Or do I want to read Emerian Rich, who's going to be like, maybe have a twist ending? There's going to be some horror. There might be vampires, werewolves, sea monsters. So that's the reason I made that choice, just because I knew my two audiences, and I knew they would not mesh in some cases. Some people do go to both, but like I said, it's a whole new career, so I had to start from the scratch with the romance. It's not the audience, not the same audience.
Ah, and do we have any more questions or comments from the audience, please?
I'd also be able, willing to answer any questions about editing or submitting your work, or the anthology that we have coming out. It's the Gothic Romance Haunts and Hellions, and I just love the cover. Um, we just finished it. It just popped like maybe a week ago. We announced it, so you've got a long time to cultivate your Gothic romance and get it into us by Halloween. If you have any particular questions about that, I'd be happy to answer that as well. Anybody write Gothic romance here in the studio?
We have a question from Ursula. She asks, I want to do a romantic spin off of my series.
Yeah, do
Wait,
it. I
good
say
idea.
do whatever you want. And
The rest of the
people
question is
love,
good.
I'm a
Good
reader
idea.
also, and I love when characters cross other barriers to go to other books. Don't you just love it when you're reading something with Anne Rice or something and you're like, reading along and there are these new characters and suddenly a cameo from the Talmasca come in and you're like, oh my God, I know him and I know his whole backstory. I love him. Isn't that just awesome? So I say yes.
Yeah, I you know
And
and
you
we
have the spin-off on a crime series. So true crime and mystery is very close. So why not write a romantic spin-off and they're still solving some kind of mystery? It would still appeal to your readers, but it wouldn't have to be so graphic. I don't think that you really have to change your um, mindset when you're writing that stuff. There are all kinds of romance novels. I don't want you guys to be hemmed into the fact that romance has to have a happy ending or a happy ever after. For now, there are romances that don't have a happy ending. There are romances that are in the thriller section or paranormal. So, I mean, I say write what you want because when I was writing Nights and I was trying to get it published, I was very much put off by the publisher's thoughts about it because it's a vampire story, so it's horror, but it ends in like a fantasy heaven. And so they had a lot of problems with it's vampires, and then all of a sudden their gods or their rulers are in heaven or in this fake heaven kind of place that I made up. What I don't know how to market it. Is it fantasy? Is it vampire? And like nowadays with Twilight and True Blood series, all that, nobody cares about that anymore. They're like, oh, it has vampires and it has gods. Okay, no problem. So you never know what's going to come up, what's going to be the rage, and your certain style of writing might be it. Sorry to go off on that.
No, that's all right. And apparently my mic was off. So for the benefit
Yes.
of people watching on YouTube, the question was, I want to do a romantic spin-off of my crime series. Good idea?
Oh, sorry.
Would involve secondary characters. So that was the question. I tried to narrate I tried to provide captioning for the audience watching on YouTube. And for those watching on YouTube, if you want to submit to horrorzine to horroraddicts.net, feel free to send me a message in YouTube and I will get it to our author. I promise.
Sure. Yeah,
And we
absolutely.
have a new question from Stella. No, a comment. Go ahead, Stella. Welcome, Thief of Hearts. Stella asked, not a question. I remember I asked about the zombie genre. Oops. Stella says, not a question. I remember I asked about the zombie genre during the novel month. Ah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, it's just like vampires. There's always going to be an audience for those things in zombies and vampires. But I think I feel and it may already be passing, but I feel the trend is going. It was witches for a little bit, and I really feel the trend is going to ghosts or paranormal stuff. You know, poltergeist things and people in spooky houses and that kind of thing. I really feel that it's going that way. Although I've seen a resurgence of vampire stuff, so I'm not sure if the zombies will come back like that too, if they're here to stay. But I feel like the zombie thing has been done. However, I only say that for people who are starting a zombie novel right now and they think it's a really great moneymaker. If you have a zombie novel in your head, write it, please, because there are people who love them. But if you're trying to figure out, what should I write? Because I want to really make money, man. I want to be one of the, selling authors. Okay, number one, don't even write for that reason because the chances of it happening are really rare. But at the same time, I wouldn't write a zombie novel on the reason that you think it's going to be the next best thing, because it has been done, and it is kind of fading out. I see. And then she asks, "What about zombie romance?" Um, I see there's room for growth there, although it has been done. But if you can do it in a new and unique way, I think that would be great.
I'm personally noticing a trend towards a return to Slavic mythology monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, Netflix put out The Witcher. The Witcher has the
Yes.
been around for close to 20 to 30 years, if I remember correctly. But the novel, the TV series has absolutely catapulted them into popularity, and everybody is quoting the series now. And in the
Right.
next year or so, I know that there's going to be a film with I can't remember the actor's name, but there is going to be a film about the Czech warlord Žižka from the 30 Years War in the medieval time, and I believe that movie is actually called Medieval. So I think we're going to see a bit of a return to, of course, the Slavic horror includes vampires, but The Witcher included a number of different creatures that we don't hear as much about. So I think that's going to be exciting in the next few years.
Right. Yeah, I have many things to say about that. Number one is that even in horror genre, the Krampus and things like that, the old horror legends are all very exciting right now to everyone, because they haven't heard from not most of them. So if you can find an old horror legend, that would be awesome, or fantasy. But unfortunately for me, because I'm not a fantasy sci-fi liker. I mean, it's okay. There are particular ones I like, but I'm not really into that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, that genre is really big right now, and anything you write for fantasy and sci-fi, they are going to gobble up. I mean, it's just like after Lord of the Rings, and then now they have what's that one my husband with the multiple worlds, the magicians, he loves that, and the Witcher is awesome, but anything like that is really popular right now. And I have to say, I've been getting a lot of emails, and I meant to address this on Facebook, and I will probably after this show. The Witcher, one of my lead characters in the Knights Dusk Warriors series is called Julian. He's a knight from the days of the Round Table. He has long white hair, pale skin. He's supposed to look like a statue, basically. And everyone is asking me, is the Witcher guy, is that Julian? Is that like a representation of the character? And I have to say, kinda. He is really like that, except the hair would be whiter. And Julian is not as muscly. He's a little bit more fat, lots of muscles, but like pretty lean kind of guy. More like Legolas, I would say, as a build. But if you want Witcher to be a representation of Julian, that more power to you. That's awesome, and thank you for reading, being a fan of such, so that you would think of that when you saw.
I don't want to talk too much about my work in progress, but I will say that my last name is Czech, and it has been an exploration of a culture that I don't know enough of, and there are the many Czech and Slavic creatures in my novel. It didn't start out that way, but it's morphed into that. It is a horror novel. Um, it's got a lot of the same creatures as The Witcher, but it's a very different take. It's um, it's more about superstition, and it's less about, you have to decide for yourself whether or not the creatures are real in my story.
Oh, cool.
So there's a very different take going on. But I started writing this about two and a half years ago. I had no idea that this trend was starting in media. So it's a very exciting time for me, and I'm hoping to that this will publish successfully. And that's all
That sounds
I say. Go ahead.
and see that brought up a really good point. Like you need to finish what don't try to write. My advice is don't try to write on trend unless you're writing a short story that's going to be quick and out the door before the trend's over. But don't write on trend. Write what you want. And hopefully the trend will come up. And like you have one ready. That's awesome. And hopefully you can get it out before the trend ends. Although I do see what you're saying, that trend seems like it's just starting. So hopefully you will have that chance. But even, okay, let's say you don't get it finished and the trend ends. Even that, you should still finish it. You should still get it out there because there'll be people that are really into The Witcher and stuff like that. And then the trend ends and they'll just be like, "Ugh, I want more. I want more." And you will be there for them. So I really want to encourage people to write what they want to write, and don't worry so much about what's hot right now. Right. So
Yes,
it's
and
just one
mine goes a
step.
completely similar creature. It's a different viewpoint. It's offers something different. So it's not trying. I had no idea about the Witcher plot until a couple months ago. Mine's not anything like an RPG. It's not like Lord of the Rings. Um, so mine offers something different. Um, so hopefully that's only to my benefit. Do we have any more questions or comments from the audience?
Writer questions, submission questions, how to do a podcast, anything about audio, horror, romance, nonfiction. I worked as a magazine editor for, oh gosh, it must have been like 3 or 4 years. I just let that go in lieu of my own consulting business. But I also have a consult where you can get your stuff critiqued by me. It's called Easy Crit for Writers. I mean, I could put the link if you're interested, and I would be definitely willing to.
Please do.
I would be definitely willing to give a discount to anybody here on Milkwood. Let me just get that. Might take me a few minutes, so if you would like to wrap up, that's fine.
You heard it here first. Milkwood members get a discount on Emerian Rich's editing services. What percentage discount we don't know yet.
I it'll take me a minute to get this. Why don't I have this ready? It's like you never think you're going to talk about that certain thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was a journalism major. I'm trained to find out that certain thing.
Okay. Um, Here is the link. I'm thinking this is it's not just an edit. It's not like you want your story edited and you run it through me. I mean, I can do that. But what this crit is about is I read it as I would read my own work. So not only do I edit it, but I also talk about, oh, I didn't get this part, or this guy needs to be more in front, or it's more of a critique in full than just an edit. So if you want to try it, you can go there, and I do have different prices for the totals of, I think, of how many words. I think what we'll do here is you'll pay the one tier, and you can submit more words up to the second tier. We'll do that as the discount. Does that sound good?
That
That
is
means you'll
entirely up
get,
to you. That is
yeah,
up to you.
yeah, that's what we'll do. So, and if you have any questions or need any help or submitting to that, or want more information on the discount, you can email me. Did I miss a question though?
I don't think
Tips
so.
on. Oh,
And did you want to throw up the link for your contest, the horror contest?
the you're talking about the submission call,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Sorry, I used the wrong terminology there.
I cleared it from my thing because you know,
Right.
bandwidth. Trying to make the
We're,
screen on cell as clear as possible.
I should have clicked it.
Okay, here we go. This is the call that we're sending out. So it just got sent out. It closes in Halloween, and it's really awesome because it's gothic romance, so it has the twist of both my genres. And there are some stipulations. So just real quickly, you have to make sure that it has a sense of menace. You have to have inclement weather. There needs to be a supernatural entity, and it needs to be set in a spooky location. And there is a time period. You must be within 1700 to 1940, but no modern story. But three of the things, it's all there at that link, or
Fantastic.
at least start working on it.
Well, I want to thank our illustrious author for joining us today. I'm apologize for anybody if this went unusually long, but there was a lot to cover. And I look forward to having you again when your next novel or anthology comes out. And I hope everyone has
Cool.
a great time.
So much for having me, and thank you for listening.
And thank you again for all of your wonderful donations. And again, if you are looking for links to the books, just click on these Prim books between us, and they will take you to Amazon.com. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to come back.
Me neither. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. You too.